Mediocre team and Big D. That's what makes this funny. How about the Cowboys? How about the Cowboys? Some way, somehow, when the count just wait, they will let you down. The accident, they will mess it up. Just wait. The accident, they will let you down. Just wait. The accident, the accident, the accident. Waiting to happen, it will happen. Tony Romo know the football, know what's coming next. He will get in the way. The deception of success. Tony Romo know the football. Are you kidding me? That's why not a catch. Really? That's funny. Big D, teasing you. This is what they do. Walking through, show up on cue. Accident, something will go wrong. The accident of the big Jumbotron. Accident, gotta recognize it's a black cat running around that franchise. Say with it. Accident, they will mess it up. Just wait. The accident, they will let you down. Just wait. The accident, the accident, the accident. Waiting to happen, it will happen. How about the Cowboys?
We are in for it today, folks. Somebody is extra hype. We can never get enough of America's team on First Take. Hello, everybody. Welcome into First Take on this Friday Eve. Molly Karam holding things down in Bristol. Your boys, Stephen A. and Max in NYC. I know how you're feeling, Stephen A. Max, how are you?
How you doing, Max? What's going on? I mean, hey, Max, I hear we might see a press conference today. Somebody might hit me. I got my tissue ready, Max. I got my tissue ready for the tears. The tears in Dallas. Am I supposed to be emotional right now? I can't. Let's go, yo. Let's go, Max. I can't wait.
Let's do it, gentlemen. Stephen A. a little sensitive today. You got to bear with him,
cold
folks.
as ice, Stephen A.
He is.
There we go. Let me go.
Coming up, plenty of NFL talk on this first day of free agency, and don't miss what Stephen A. also has to think about his friend Tim Tebow's Mets debut. But we start with Tony Romo done in Big D. So the Cowboys will release the franchise's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns today, a source telling our Adam Schefter and Todd Archer, allowing Romo to get the chance to sign with another team if he chooses to do so, while removing any doubt that they have that they have the utmost faith in Dak Prescott. So the Dallas Morning News saying their goodbyes to the Cowboys star quarterback with the headline, "Farewell, Romo." Stephen A., how should Tony Romo, I need you to be serious here, how should Tony Romo be remembered in Dallas?
Well, he should be remembered affectionately because he's a nice guy that gave them some really, really good moments. He was always entertaining. You never knew what was going to happen. And as a result, the intrigue, the suspense, and all of the things that came with it, of course. You look at Tony Romo and you say, well, you know what? We're kind of going to miss him. But then reality kicks in. And you start thinking about the record. And you start thinking about the absence of championships. Not only the absence of championships, the absence of championship appearances, whether it be in the Super Bowl or the conference championship game, none of which he ever participated in, by the way. And then reality kicks in and it slaps you over your head and you recognize, excuse me, in 10 years as the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, he had 2 playoff victories. 2. Last time I checked, in order to win a Super Bowl in 1 year, you got to win at least 3 playoff games. He won 2 in 10 years. So nobody is calling him a scrub. Nobody is saying that he can't play. But the last time I checked, when you talk about dudes who are revered, dudes who are celebrated, dudes who have a history attached to them, that you come back in your halcyon days and you just sit there and say, hey, you know, I mean, we were, boy, it was wonderful when you were here, etc., etc. I'm challenged to find those days that can be attached to Tony Romo. In the end, he was a really good, really talented quarterback who repeatedly and perpetually came up short. You remember him like you remember a whole bunch of other Dallas Cowboys who never won a damn Super Bowl. We appreciate your service. Sayonara.
Look, he was the best player, Tony. Well, before I even get to that, Stephen A., the final chapter hasn't yet been written. We don't know how the story ends. As a Cowboy, yes, but as his his career, no. All right, as a Cowboy, he was the best player on a 500 team for a long time. He was a very good quarterback. I think about a guy like Archie Manning, or nowadays a guy like Andy Dalton. Of course, unlike Andy Dalton, who plays for the Bengals, Tony Romo played for the Cowboys, and that does mean something. He was an occasional Pro Bowler. largely because his team, I'm talking, well, Tony Romo to Andy Dalton. But Tony Romo was an occasional Pro Bowler, mainly because he didn't make deep playoff runs. The big picture about Romo is that every team has these guys. They have guys who are kind of team legends, but not league legends, right? They will, in Yankee Stadium, there's Monument Park, and you'll see guys who would never be in the Hall of Fame in their Monument Park. And Tony Romo is one of those kind of players. If you had him, the Dallas Cowboys had him, and that is the glamour position in sports right now. Once upon a time in America, the glamour positions were the point guard or center for the Los Angeles Lakers, the center fielder or shortstop for the New York Yankees, the heavyweight champion of the world, and the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. And of all those positions, the one left standing is the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and Tony Romo was that for a generation. And that's really saying something. That's tremendous. And he had a lot of success. But he generally led underwhelming teams. And as you point out, and as many have, no real playoff runs. So there's Tony Romo, a likable character who performed at a very high level for a number of years for a storied franchise. Clearly something less than a Hall of Famer. But, you know, I think Andy Dalton, I think if he continues, I think Archie Manning once upon a time.
Mac, your strategy this morning is unlike any strategy I've ever seen you employed in my life. All right, in all the years that all the months that I've been working with you, you're trying to put me asleep with that one because I don't give a damn about any of that stuff right now with Tony Romo. You're gonna mention Andy Dalton in the same breath as Tony Romo, and I'm supposed to sit up there and think that Tony Romo is supposed to be celebrated? Come on, Max, come on, give it up straight. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you don't remember people who never won. You remember people who do. Tony Romo never won, and that's the facts.
Sometimes
These are the facts. Excuse me?
Sometimes you remember players who didn't. Yeah, sometimes
and
you
why
do.
Is that? And why is that? Why is that? Because they were nice guys?
Because they were. No, they were very good, and you knew the teams they were playing on were flawed, and maybe they played for a storied franchise. Bobby Mercer for the New York Yankees, though it was very different because he came up with a lot of fanfare, high draft pick. The next Mickey Mantle didn't pan out, but he was an all-star. Clearly not a great player, but a very good one for a storied franchise in a glamour position. That's Tony Romo.
Well, let me say this to you, Max. Let me give you some more frequent names, all right? Work with me here. Right. Patrick Ewing never won a title. Karl Malone never won a title.
Ewing.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, Dan Marino never won a title. People like that, okay? Reggie Miller never won a title. Charles Barkley never won a title. But guess what they did, Max? They actually won in the postseason. They actually produced. Yeah. You actually looked at them and said, excuse me, somebody great, whether it was Jordan, whether it was Olajuwon, in Marino's case, whether it was Montana and the 49ers, somebody elite and on an elevated legendary level got in their way and derailed their greatness. We can't say that about Tony Romo. There was nobody legendary that got in his way. He just didn't get it done.
He's not the Karl Malone. And that's why I would never say, I'm using names like Bobby Mercer and Archie Manning and Andy Dalton if he continues. I would never say Karl Malone or, he's a very good quarterback for a number of years already. If he doubles, say, what he's done in his career, he will be to the Bengals what Romo is to the Cowboys. But when you play for the Cowboys, it is different. It's not just like you're playing for the Bengals. You are playing for the glamour franchise at the glamour position on a high level for a generation.
For years they weren't glamorous, arguably because of Romo. For years they weren't glamorous.
Because Romo underperformed or because his defense wasn't good enough?
There were years he underproduced. You trying to tell me he produced every year?
Yeah, he was a very good producer year after year. In fact, that's one of the excellent things about him. You were set at the beginning of the season, whatever other problems your team had, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you were set at quarterback. That has tremendous value. The teams he played for were flawed. And by the way, if you want to criticize them for underachieving and put some of that on the quarterback, that's legitimate. I mean, look, he didn't handle the snap. He tried to run in the ball. That's a game they should have won. That's a playoff game. You can point to instances like that, sure. But is that most to blame, or is most to blame the fact that the teams just weren't that good? They weren't that bad either, but they weren't great. Did he elevate them over their station? No. But did he hold them back? I don't
But
think
Max,
so.
he
was
did-
playing in an era where Jerry Jones was still acting as GM in a much more hands-on way.
Max, he did, regardless of the team, he did always struggle in those November, December months. Always.
Struggle?
That's
I
true.
mean, by the standards he'd already set. He'd also had some very good games in those months.
Hey, Max, what about,
he had-
what
one
about the
season.
3 years? What about the 3 years he went back to back to back, 8-8 seasons for 3 years in a row?
Right.
The final game of the regular season, he lost to the Redskins, lost to the Giants, lost to the Eagles. He was the quarterback for all but one of those games. I'm talking about for the 3 seasons. He only missed one game in those 3 seasons, and they couldn't go better than 8-8 all 3 years. That's not on Romo?
Okay, but no, you know what? There's an answer to that. If it's an either or, right? If it's a zero-sum game,
stop it.
Then maybe it is. Then you're right. But now let's take the reverse. Let's say Romo would have succeeded in those seasons, in the moments that you're talking about. Then he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, like what? So, but okay,
But he did it. What do you mean? What if? He did it. He didn't get it done.
Stephen A., that's why he's not even better than he is. That's why I'm saying Archie Manning or Bobby Mercer and not Karl Malone or Charles Barkley.
So why shouldn't he be remembered for that? So why shouldn't he be remembered for that primarily? Why shouldn't he be remembered for that?
That is when you weigh it, there are the pros and the cons. Those
And
are some of
the cons. The cons outweigh the pros.
Outweigh the pros in terms of greatness. I'm not arguing he's great, but not in terms of very goodness. He was clearly very good for a generation on a glamour team at quarterback. The glamour team at quarterback.
I concede, Max. You got the argument. I had no idea there was a category that was called very goodness. This is a new one.
Right.
You got me, Max.
He's going into the Hall of
very goodness.
He's going
Molly.
into the Hall of very good.
Very goodness. Max Kellerman has just created an entirely new category. Very goodness. You're special, bro.
Right.
You are special. You got me
He's
there,
going
Max.
into the Hall of Very Good with Bobby Mercer and a bunch of other
Hall
guys.
of Very Goodness. Goodness,
Yes,
Molly.
there
Did
is.
you hear that?
I did.
Very goodness. Max
did.
Kellerman.
Right.
You got me, man.